I'll hand it over to you, Susan, to talk about the next portion.
Thank you, Terry. First of all, congratulations to my fellow new directors and welcome aboard, so to speak. It is now my pleasure to bring to you Laura Silver as our guest speaker, who is going to speak to you about the compassionate role of death doula. Laura is a certified death doula based in Calgary, Alberta. She is dedicated to compassionate care and has over 15 years of experience. Laura previously served as a senior policy advisor and project manager in the Ontario healthcare system, contributing to various strategies and initiatives. Since 2016, Laura has led impactful projects in Alberta, including the creation of the Early Hearing Detection and Intervention Program. As a certified Lean Green Belt in the healthcare and PROSCI certified professional, Laura is committed to ensuring that every community has access to supportive resources for individuals to spend their final days in comfort and peace. Currently, Laura serves on the board of directors for the Home Hospice Association and chairs the Alberta chapter of the HHA, working towards her vision of every community having a local death doula. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, here is Laura Silver. Laura?
Thank you. Can I confirm that you can hear me?
Yes.
That's perfect. Thank you very much. And that was a beautiful introduction. You made me sound better than I think I am. It's wonderful to be here, everybody. I'm going to give a short presentation, and then given the theme about, the compassionate care of a death doula, I'd like to finish my presentation with a story of the week that I've had. I've had a very busy week as a death doula, and I think explaining what I've done this week will also help you understand how a death doula can help you at end of life. Next slide, please. So, we got to go back one. Yeah, so very small percentage of Canadians actually experience sudden death. Because we're living longer and with more medical supports, most of us are experiencing a gradual decline. And we don't see death from old age on a certificate of death normally. It's usually one of the comorbidities, but that's what's happening as the body wears out. So according to the 2016 census, 92% of seniors live in private households, and most of them said they wanted to die at home. But the reality is that most of us die in a hospital. So less than 30% of people right now die at home, and most want to die in a place that is comfortable and familiar to them. Next slide, please. So what do we usually want? If you've been polled, and even the Vanier Institute did a poll, and what they found is that we all want to live forever. I think most of us. We want to be fully capable and living every moment and then die suddenly in our sleep. So we don't want to spend time being ill or sick, infirm, unable to participate in personal care for ourselves. We want to die at home, not in the hospital, and that's been made very clear. We all want to die pain-free, and most of all, we want to die with dignity. We have a lot of challenges with dying at home. I was going to add some slides explaining how the healthcare system has changed so much in the last 100 years that it's almost prevented the idea of dying at home. But I think it's better to say what challenges we have. Oh, can we go back just a little bit again? To the bubbles. There we go. So there are some challenges with dying at home right now. We often live isolated. I have many clients that don't have a partner, that maybe never had kids, that have a very small social network. So as they age, that network obviously gets smaller. Or if they do have kids, those children have moved away from home. We don't grow up and live in the same place anymore. We're all over the place. Our care system doesn't cover all the costs, so it can be very costly to die at home. Our homes may not be equipped properly. I think probably a very few percentage of people have a handicap access bathroom in their home. If you want to renovate it, it costs a lot of money. But that's something that is a barrier to being at home in your final days. We have uncertainty about resources. We don't know what's available to us to help us die at home. And our loved ones don't know how to take care of us. There was a poll that suggested that the average care of an elderly, infirm, or dying person spent 55 hours a week caring for that person. I'm going to suggest that it's actually more. And if you combine that with mostly females being caregivers and all of us going out to work every day, you can see that the number of hours in a week and the number of hours that we spend working don't quite correlate. There's no sleep time in there. So it's very difficult for our loved ones to take care of us, even if they are close by. And we might say that it's not our tradition, but it really is. 100 years ago, we all looked after each other as we were dying, and family members and friends in the community would come into our home to see us and say goodbye. And if we hung a black curtain on our windows, our neighbors would come by and bring food and comfort. And that doesn't happen anymore. Next slide, please. Can we have the next slide, please? Oh, I see a mouse. There we go. So I want to talk about what does a death doula do, not only to facilitate a good death, but also to facilitate a good death at home. And we're going to call this a bit about the sand in the jar, and I'm going to refer to that later. Next slide, please. So what do we do? First of all, death doulas are non-medical compassionate support. We support the medical team. I am not a medical professional. If I was a medical professional taking on a death doula role, I would not act in any medical capacity. In fact, I wouldn't even hand you a bottle of Tylenol if you asked, but I would find somebody that could help you. What we do is we support the person experiencing the life-limiting illness or frailty, and we support their family members. We provide support for isolated or vulnerable populations. So for example, Home Hospice Network right now, our Home Hospice Association right now is working on pilot projects within the prison system in Canada. And we also are doing work with the houseless population. We can support all kinds of deaths, not just from frailty and old age. We can support prenatal or infant loss. We can support pet loss, and we can support complex grief, which is when somebody suffers many losses in a short period of time. We provide a lot of education. So we try to prepare our families, our clients and families, with an awareness of what's likely to come. Because what we like to say as death doulas is that a natural death, is not an emergency. It's time to put the kettle on. And if you know what's coming, you're less likely to be afraid of what you see or hear. So I do a lot of education in my role. Next slide. We also provide coordination, so assistance in creating a network of support. We run errands, we help with telephone trees, that kind of thing. We're present. We can be present when family members or friends need a break, and that's usually called respite. I think maybe lots of people have heard that word before. We try to facilitate somebody having a good death, whatever that means for them. And we do research. So for example, if somebody wanted to know if there was a Cooperative Memorial Society in their region to help them do their pre-planning, I would be the one that helped them do the research and provide them with the information on how to contact this organization. We also provide a lot of non-medical care, so palliative massage, foot rubs, energy work, and just basically a soft place to land. We help with advanced planning so that loved ones have time to grieve instead of having to make difficult decisions during an emotional time, and I'll refer to that in my story that's to come. We work in empathy. We're non-judgmental. I'm Switzerland. It doesn't matter to me if you're Muslim, I'm Muslim when I'm with you. If you're Christian, I'm Christian when I'm with you. I don't judge what you want as your final wishes. I try to facilitate those for you. I do not try to inject my personal beliefs into your journey. It's your journey, and my job is to help you with it. I'm also an advocate. I work with a lot of people with dementia that are unable to speak for themselves, and I help them maintain their dignity at end of life. We can do pre and postmortem rituals that honor loved ones. We provide grief and bereavement support, so we try to help somebody have a good death. So here's what we do not do. We don't make the decision making. As I said, the decisions are yours and we help you with them. We don't provide medical advice. I can sometimes say when I see somebody at end of life that might be agitated or suffering terminal agitation, I might be able to suggest to the family, I think this is what it is. Would you like to go talk to a nurse? But I don't provide the medical advice. We don't work against the medical advice. We do not offer or pass medicines to clients. We don't take center stage. So this is where the sand in the jar comes in. I think there's that high school anecdote where the teacher had a mason jar and he put stones in the jar and asked the class, is it full? And the class said, yes. And then he put pebbles in the jar and he asked the class, well, now is it full? And the class said, yes. Well, then he put sand in the jar and he said, is it full now? And they said, yes. And I like to think of myself as the sand. I kind of work in all those realms and domains where other professionals can't help you. A doctor can't sit with you and do your advanced planning. A nurse can't sit with you and hear about your family issues. They don't have time for that sort of thing. But wherever there's a little gap in the care, that's where I like to come in. The other thing is, unless we're trained for it, and unless we tell you we're trained for it, we don't do physical lifts or transfers in personal care. So we're more companions if we're doing vigil or respite. If we're trained in something else, it's really important that we say that before we undertake a task that's not really within our realm. So I explained why I'm the sand in the jar. And if we go to the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about things you should know, and then I'm going to tell my story. So death doulas are fee-for-service private providers. So that means that you have to pay me for my services, and it's not necessarily covered by any government system. Death doulas, as I said, should not work with any other hat on unless there's an agreement. So there are death doulas with nursing backgrounds or with social work backgrounds or healthcare aid backgrounds. But if they want to act in that role, maybe you have a loved one that needs to be transferred to a washroom. That death doula should be able to show to you ahead of time that they have training in that area and that you have agreed together that that is a task that you're willing to trust them with. One of the things you should know too is that certification for a death doula is not regulated across Canada. Not all training is equal. If you were to ask me about my background, not only would I be able to provide you with the code of ethics for death doulas, but I'd also be able to provide you with the curriculum from the Home Hospice Association so that you could see what I actually studied and learned. That doesn't happen everywhere. And also fees and agreements vary widely among death doulas. There's no standardized charge. People sort of set their own rates, and it's up to you to decide whether or not they're reasonable. What I would recommend if you're looking at a death doula, I think it's very important that you ask for a current vulnerable persons check. So that's like a police background check. I would say it's reasonable to say if it's within 2 years. The school system has a 5-year expiry for a vulnerable persons check, but I think 2 years is quite reasonable. And I think you should ask for references. Next slide. When should you call me? You should call me now. It doesn't matter if you have a life-limiting illness now. I love talking to people when they can still express themselves and tell me what they want. It is the best time. And it's important to know too that when you hire me, you're not signing up for a specific number of hours or a specific lengthy contract. I might meet you in perfect health and we might work on some planning together. And then you might not see me for 3 years. I'll disappear. I'll become wallpaper. But then when you need me again, I'll be back. Having the plans, though, while you're of sound mind will make you feel much better. And it will also help your family spend more time grieving as opposed to wondering where the paperwork is and how to make decisions or wondering what your decision might have been now that you can't speak for yourself. Next slide. So I did put some resources up, and I think you got the materials already. And I'm going to end now with a story about how my week went. I spent time with 4 clients this week. I dropped in on a couple in their 90s. Both of them have dementia. And I'm responsible basically for their well-being right now because they have family that lives in other continents, and that family cannot be there at a short notice. So I make sure that they have food in their fridge. They live in a memory unit, but they still have little kitchenettes. I made sure that I did a physical check and I made sure that I didn't see any scratches or bruises or anything that would cause me to worry about their health and safety. I talked to them and engaged them in conversation. I gave the wife a foot massage and I combed her hair and put it in curlers. And I took the 95-year-old gentleman out for a cigar because that's what he loves the most. I visited another lady that is a double amputee and she's unable to move around for herself. And she's scared about dying. And so we talked about that. And that was all earlier in the week. But then I had a client that suddenly came into an actively dying state. And I've been looking after this client for about a year and a half. And a year and a half ago, we did some of her advanced care planning, and the family was able to pre-purchase her funeral with all of her wishes in mind. We did some planning about last year. This is about a year and a half ago. What would you like to see at the end of the life? And she said, I want to see mountains. And I said, okay, that might be tricky, but we can do something about that. What would you like to smell at end of life? Oh, I'd love to smell roses. Okay, I can do that. What would you like your last taste to be? She says, I love lemon meringue pie. I said, okay, I think I've got that. What would you like to touch? Well, she wanted to touch her rosary and the hands of her family. Like, we can do that too. And what would you like to hear? And this one caught me up a little bit because she said she wanted to hear the voice of the Virgin Mother. And I'm like, well, I'm stuck on that one, but let's see what we can do. She's a very devout Catholic, so maybe we can do some hymns and so on. This wonderful 100-year-old lady who I adore fell into an actively dying state this week. And so first she started sleeping. And the family said, what's going on here? And I explained to them, and she stopped eating and she stopped drinking, and the family wondered what was going on. And I explained it to them. I said, don't be afraid. The body knows what it's doing. The body knows how to shut down. And if she doesn't want food, she doesn't need food. But we took the opportunity to put some lemon pudding on her tongue, which she really liked. And we put up a poster of the mountains and we started playing hymns. Oh, the other smell that she liked was frankincense. So I got a bit of frankincense oil and put it in a little jar near her bed. So not enough to overwhelm, but just enough that every so often she'd get a little whiff of it. She didn't move from the bed all this week, even though she wanted to. And in her delirium, she wanted to stand. And there was one night where her 70-year-old daughter was just exhausted. So I said, go home, get some sleep. There's more to come. And I spent the most restless night ever with this lady. I think it was the most difficult night I've had as a death doula because she flailed all night and she was uncomfortable and the pain medications weren't working and she didn't know what was happening and she was scared. Despite all the conversations we'd had in the year and a half before and her devout Christianity, she was very scared. And so I soothed her and comforted her and gave her palliative massage. And sometimes I held her like a baby. And her family got some rest. And other family members were trying to find flights to come in. And so I looked after her for the last 4 days. And I think I have probably slept 5 hours in the last 4 days. The family eventually arrived from out of town. The one daughter, 70 years old, that has been with her mother, caring for her for years and years, got some rest and then did vigil with me. And she didn't sleep for the last couple of days either. And we did everything that this woman wanted. We gave her the scents and the sounds and the touch. And a lot of people feel like there's no control at end of life. But we tried to give her some of her self-determination. She had made these decisions earlier, but because she communicated them to me, I was able to tell the family, look, this is what she wants. We actually wrote it all down and documented it. We could refer to it when we were stuck. So we did lots of rosaries, we sang, and every time she woke up just a little bit, she said, I love you. And I said, I love you too. And your family loves you. It was beautiful in the end because the last hours, she had some peace and she actually passed away at 2:30 this morning. I haven't slept yet, but I'm planning to after this meeting. But the other things that I did for this family, I went and got them breakfast while they were doing vigil. I helped the daughter, who's a very task-oriented person, didn't know what to do. And I said, she's not going to wear the clothes she has in this room anymore. Let's pack them up now because then you don't have to do it when you're grieving. So we packed up a lot of the room. And the daughter said, I want this to go to charity. I want this to go to my house. I want this to go in the garbage. And I did all of that. And then when the family came, I brought coffee. And my husband actually made them a Cuban dinner. And we brought that in as well so that they had something to eat because they didn't want to eat. They weren't thinking of eating, but they needed to eat because dying is a lot of work. And you have to have strength and endurance for it. So in the end, there was a very peaceful death early this morning, and everybody got to say goodbye. And we covered her with a beautiful butterfly quilt before we called the funeral home to come. And now they're resting, and later today I'll go check on them and see how they're doing. So that's sort of an explanation of what I do. And as you can see, perhaps maybe you do need a death doula for all the sand in the jar. This is just a little bit, I don't have to talk about this right now. I did allude to it. This is some of the things that your care team doesn't do. So the sand in the jar stuff. Do we have any questions?
Laura, we do have a question. One of our attendees is wondering whether you as a death doula would provide support to someone who has chosen medical assistance in dying.
Yes, I do that. I provide support. So as a death doula, just as a premise before we get to being approved for medical assistance in dying, if I'm with a client, and again, I do not suggest things, I don't suggest medical things, but if somebody says, I'm so much pain, I don't want to live anymore, I wouldn't say, hey, have you thought of MAID? I would say, you know what, if you weren't in pain, would you want to live? And somebody might say, yeah, if I wasn't in pain, I could still go golfing. I could still go to, on a summer vacation. It's the pain that's stopping me. Or they might say, you know what, I've had enough. And it doesn't matter if I'm in pain or not, I've had enough. For the person that said, if they weren't in pain, they would still carry on living, I would advocate for them to have a pain pathway, pain specialist, to get some more medical attention for the pain. But for the person that really has decided for themselves already, I will help them with every step of the process. So I will help them with the paperwork. If they want accompaniment to appointments, I will accompany them, not as their voice, but just as support for them. I can be present for MAID. I can help. I've had difficult conversations before with family members that don't understand why an individual has chosen MAID. So I help facilitate those conversations, and I can be with the person at the end, and I can also help make phone calls and look after the aftercare.
Well, thank you for that, Laura. Somebody, an attendee, is wondering how they might contact you. I know that we will be putting, or probably already have put your contact information up on our website. Do you have
Yeah, that's a perfect way. There's a contact form on the website, or you can do Laura at deathdoulalora.ca.
Somebody else is wondering how might they contact a death doula in Edmonton?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. You can contact me and I can help connect you. You could do a Google search for Death Doula Edmonton, but I do believe I know a couple of them. So if you wanted to contact me, I could definitely put you in touch with a death doula in Edmonton.
And Laura, we also have death doulas listed on our website.
Oh, that's correct.
List.
Yes, in the resource list. That's true. Yeah.
And another question is, do you know of any death doulas in Cochrane? Now, I assume Terry has just answered that. If you check that list on our website, you should be able to see that.
Yeah.
I do also know a death doula in Bragg Creek as well, close to Cochrane. Mm-hmm.
So
I was going to say our list is probably not exhaustive. So if you do know of some that aren't on our list and you want to share the information with us, then we can post them on there as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
I don't see any other questions. Very, very complimentary comments, obviously. And I'm sure your presentation and the way you're presenting it, it opened many people's eyes and ears. And that's what we wanted to achieve today.
Mm-hmm.
Just there is an understanding. And for those who are wondering, yes, Laura's presentation will be posted on our website. So you can go back and replay it at your leisure. Just give us a few days until we have everything in proper order so we can post it.
Yeah.
I don't see any other questions.
I just see a comment from Michelle Shurik in Edmonton, who, by the way, is one of our volunteers, and she is recommending a death doula, a particular individual in Edmonton.
Super.
Okay,
Yeah, I didn't focus on all the slides today, given the week that I had. I thought for you folks it might be more interesting to hear what my week was like and how I helped a family, because that kind of puts a picture in your head. It's sort of hard to get the idea with the slides, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One more interesting question, Laura. Howard is wondering if a death doula could provide support to the family of a recently deceased person, aftercare, so to speak.
Yes, I have done that many times. Sometimes there's just one or two questions where the family doesn't know where to turn and they want some guidance, and I provide the information that they need. I always do a 30-minute free consultation, and I try to help people as much as possible in those 30 minutes. Like, if you need information, let's get it done in that 30 minutes. Sometimes it takes a little longer, but we can certainly identify what the issues are. But if somebody has already passed away and there's a family that's in need of support or assistance, I'm happy to do that as well. Yeah, some things include helping people decide what are the cherished items from that person that they want to keep and how to gently let go of other things. Sometimes it's somebody that's has a lot of complex grief because they've suffered several losses in a short period of time, and we need to find a way to get through that. If somebody's grieving in a way that I can't support them, I help them find resources. Yeah.
I believe anybody has any more? Sylvia, I don't see anything else. Do you have any other questions?
No, I don't see any more questions, Susan. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, I'm gonna close the question period. Laura, thank you so very much, with much appreciation from all of us and certainly from the membership. And I am sure your presentation will function as a resource for many who may take an additional time to replay it and learn even more. Or possibly get your information. So thank you so very much for joining us today.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. Great. It's wonderful to have the Cooperative Memorial Society with us in Alberta. I think it's an incredible organization.
Well, thank you. We'll take it as a compliment. Thank you, and we'll talk to you at some point.
Thank you so much.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, as previously noted, today's event is recorded and will be posted on our website, as I mentioned it a little while ago. I certainly want to thank you for attending and supporting your Cooperative Memorial Society. With that, on behalf of all of us at CMA, I'm saying goodbye. Have a great rest of the afternoon, and we will see you next year on February 25th, 2025. Hasta la vista. See you next time.